The gospel today reminds us that in these days when the bridegroom has returned to the Father, fasting is our Christian obligation. Fasting has been part of the practice of almost all religions. Jews, Muslims, and Christians have practiced fasting ever since. The Pharisees observed fasting very rigorously. Unfortunately, they lacked sincerity and charity towards the poor and the needy. Their fasting, prayer, and almsgiving are only for show. This kind of attitude is what God despises. Fasting does remain a vitally important means of sacrificing legitimate bodily goods for the sake of some higher good. Fasting is the recognition that because of the fall, our desires have become disordered, and oftentimes our lower appetites, desires for food, sex, sleep, and so on, are no longer subject to reason. As such, fasting together with prayer is a powerful spiritual weapon in fighting our sinful inclinations and reordering our hearts toward God. In the gospel today, the Pharisees criticize the disciples of Jesus for not fasting. Jesus takes this occasion to teach about the proper meaning of fasting. In the first place, fasting does not only consist in avoiding or limiting our intake of food and drink. Rather, it should lead us to a firm rejection of sin and selfishness. Pope Francis urges us to do this. He said, "Fast from hurting words and say kind words. Fast from sadness and be filled with gratitude. Fast from anger and be filled with patience. Fast from pessimism and be filled with hope. Fast from worries and have trust in God. Fast from complaints, contemplate simplicity. Fast from pressures and be prayerful. Fast from bitterness, fill your hearts with joy. Fast from selfishness and be compassionate. Fast from grudges and be reconciled. Fast from words, be silent and listen." And also our Lenten calendar gives a lot of inputs how we can practice fasting this Lenten season. Furthermore, our fasting becomes more pleasing to God when it is accompanied by our works of charity and mercy. In the first reading today, God tells his people through the prophet Isaiah, "This rather is the fasting that I wish, freeing the oppressed, sheltering the homeless, clothing the naked, sharing bread with the hungry," and so on. In other words, we fast, that is, we voluntarily endure hunger so that we may also feel the pains and sufferings of our poor brethren who do not have enough food to eat. In this way, we become more compassionate towards them and do something substantial to help them. We eat less so that the poor can eat more. During this season of Lent, let us not only be concerned about avoiding sin and vices, but also about doing acts of charity and mercy to our needy brothers and sisters. In this way, our prayers and fasting will lead us to genuine holiness, and we become truly pleasing in the eyes of God. So the Lenten season began, and if you do not take any practice of Lent, please begin to do it. And as I said in the beginning, it is always important our work of charity, mercy, sacrifices is all pleasing in front of God. We have to do some changes in our life. We have to take some actions in order to change our way of sinfulness, way of our attitude, and every day we have to try to grow towards God. The Lenten season is always a time for reconciliation, conversion, and come back to God.